So this is Iron Designer here. I'm not really sure how I'm going to narrate this video, so just kind of follow along. I think it's a fun video, but it is going to combine Windows commands with HTML and some coding instructions. I'm going to use Visual Studio Console to do the coding portion in a different IDE that I commonly use. So the purpose of this video, I've titled it Hacking Techniques Like 007. It just basically, let's say that you're at work and you don't want people to actually have contact with certain source files because they might delete those files, and you're trying to make a more secure system than even SharePoint or Windows, Files Explorer, something like that. You're trying to increase the level of security of your office. And in the past, when I worked for a manufacturing company, they had the same issue. They wanted a quick way for people in manufacturing to be able to access data visually on a screen. For example, how to put machinery together. But they didn't really want all these mechanics and machinists, welders and pipe fitters and things like that, electricians, to really get in and touch, physically be able to touch with the mouse the various files, and it was very insecure. So what they wanted to do is create kind of a portal into visualizing the files without having direct connection to the file and without anybody being able to download the files or copy the files. So I was asked to come up with a very crude and dirty program, which I did, and it was very easy to install and really alleviated many of their security issues with their files, just mainly being lost and being deleted or being dragged and moved from one folder to another, and nobody could find it. They'd have to search and have to reorganize their files in various ways. So I came up with the solution I'm about to show you in this video. So I just wanted to remind everybody about the other videos on the Iron Designer channel. Just wanted to go over that really quick. We've got How Weldments Fail. That's a very good video. Working with Lincoln Arc Welding textbook. How Bolt Patterns Fail. Per chart analysis, web scraping. I've got videos on CSV and SQL, calculations on centrifugal energy, kinetics, number analysis, mechanical engineering, stress and kinetic energy analysis, learning to interview, reverse engineering, numerical analysis, safety designs, starting your business, all the way on through to robotics and smart machines. So let's say that you did a search of your drive, say a server. Here I'm just showing a few files, but you can imagine there could be, 22 million files that you want to review. And, if you go in and click on it as a network engineer or something, well, then, there's a record kept of that. But if there's hundreds of employees at your location, and say you're doing a meeting, people are in a rush, they might drag and drop a file, or they might open a file, change something within the file, even if they correct a spelling mistake, it doesn't necessarily that was done safely. So there is a cybersecurity issue. And they could invalidate something. You just never really know what's reviewing the data in the files, maybe the timestamp, maybe the file size, maybe the bit count, maybe the file name, maybe even how the files are sorted, if it's the fourth or fifth file in the sort list. You can never tell. Or maybe when you open and close a file, it might save a backup that could then change your total files listed. Your file count is now off by 1. If a file is missing, it's off by 1. So there's tremendous amount of cybersecurity risk when you allow people to have direct access to the file. So it's better to try to set up a portal. So what I did is I wrote a small amount of code that I'm showing you on the screen here. And basically what it does is just going to combine some Windows commands. And what this code does is it goes into a directory like what I just showed you. It looks at the files on the server within the directory. It makes a listing of those files. And then depending on what kind of tags the file has for security, because maybe you don't want someone to run an executable file. You don't really know what it's going to execute. Maybe you don't want someone that's going to run a source file like a C file, Java file, JavaScript, Python file. You don't want someone actually running that. You don't even know if they have a way to compile it or not. Maybe you don't want them to access the source code. Maybe there's intellectual property within the source code that's copyrighted or something like that. So when you create a portal, for example, here I'm using the Windows shell command, and that's very easy to learn using shells. So here I'm telling it to go into the directory and look for all these different file extension types: PDF, the Excels, the PowerPoints, the Word docs, the JPEG, TIFFs, and message files is an old format of things like Outlook and emails and things like that. PNGs, GIFs, text, basic files, Python files, C++, could also be CPP, HTML, all that. And it's going to use the piping command. If you're familiar with pipes in programming like R and Python, all the languages use pipes. So this little system, this little symbol here, says anything you find in the directory under the shell command with these extensions, pipe those files into this text file. So we have a listing of it. And so you can see if I delete some of these extensions, it's going to limit the user's access to the piping command and what the output is. So it changes the visibility of the requester. Then over here, because I am like, a network engineer, so I can go ahead and request the entire directory using the star command. So that's only for, higher level authorizations within the company, right? I'm just showing you how to do this, say if you were going to be a network engineer, a cybersecurity engineer, and what you're going to maybe look at and how you're going to distinguish lower level users from higher level users, or inadequate access level users to advanced authoritative access users. So what it's going to do, it's going to create more pipes, and it's going to use the hack like a spy file as an input, which is up here. So it's basically inputting data from there. So I've already piped data into that file, and I'm going to use that as an input into my software here that I've developed. And as a result of that, my output is going to come out as HTML as pipe number 2, and then I'm going to open up this whole directory SPY account as an input for number 3. And that's just going to be used for something totally different, because I need to strip a header off of the SPY file here, and then I'm going to combine that header data, which is the directory data, into the directory data for the file names. All right, so that's combining this pipe with this pipe into this third input stream. Okay, so now all we do is we just tell our program to begin building up an HTML file, and you just need very basic CSS and HTML knowledge, and it's really simple. If you could download these books. There's tons of them you could download. They're in PDF. There are hundreds of pages. You don't need to really read up on all that, but I mean, it's pretty simple to go through, copy and paste some of the samples that are there. And just by combining a few little bits of knowledge from here and there, you can really build a very clever and very intellectual software. So the first thing I do is take care of all my CSS, because I want my colors correct, I want my my backgrounds correct, my font types correct, and all that. And also I want my behavior correct, because the output in the HTML file is going to have hyperlinks back to these files I just piped in. So any files that it finds, it's going to make a hyperlink back to communicate and open up that file. So that's how I'm going to maintain security through hyperlink systems. I'm not going to have to go into a folder and click on anything at all. It's all going to be done through hyperlinks. So I've just decided to choose the color red. It really stands out. And at this point, I'm going to begin the HTML portion of my output file, which, remember, was in that pipe number 2. The hack like a spy HTML for output is number 2. So every time you see on the left, print to number 2, print to number 2, print to number 2, what that's doing is it's actually building up my HTML code, and only I have control over that HTML code. So if I add 50 more files to my file database, then all I do is I rerun my code builder, my automatic HTML builder, and I'm back online within seconds. It doesn't take very long to build it back up, and it automatically replaces it onto the browser server, and anybody can now click on a refresh screen and have access to the files that they've requested. Then when they no longer need that that file, I can then remove that hyperlink from the portal, and accessibility to that file is now eliminated. So here you start off every HTML with a body command, and basically here I'm just formatting it so it's like the colors, the fonts, just some little header information, a little description about IRONDesigner. The date when this thing gets created is important to maintain revision control in cybersecurity. Talks about the fonts, and now we get into the table, because I'm gonna not just splatter a lot of hyperlinks on the screen. I'm gonna put them in a table format so that they're nice, and it's like a nice grid. And the grid is gonna expand and contract as I choose to incorporate more files or delete files from the portal access screen. Then what we need to do then, of course, is we need to set our counter, and we need to begin going through a loop, right? And usually I'll choose something like a while loop, and it whiles until it finds the end of the file. So it's looking for pipe number 1. Pipe number 1 was hack like a spy text file, and it's going to loop through that text file until it reaches the end of the file, and it's going to do these commands right here. It's going to set up a TD style, and it's going to create the hyperlink to that file name, and then it's going to close out the hyperlink. It's going to close out that TD section in the table, and it's going to go to the next one. And every time it does 3 of them across in a row, it's going to move to the next row. So this is column 2, row 1, column 3, row 1, and then it's going to go back through, print out a close, loop back, and repeat until it's done reading until the end of the file. Once we get down here and it's done looping and it's hit the end of the file, it's now going to close out the HTML structure by closing the table, closing the body, and closing the file. Then at the end, what I'm going to do, this is where I combine in that pipe number 3. It's going to bring in the directory data and just list it, so we know exactly that this portal is looking at the correct directory with the correct path. And you may set up several directories such as this, and so this way everybody knows that this data is current as of a certain date, because I list the date on there, and I list the directory name and information and the total file count. So nobody needs to actually look and see what is coming from the operating system, because I'm going to count it for them, and I'm going to display the total files found. And the reason why it goes to number 1 and number 2 is because one of them is going to it's going to go back to add more information here, and then the other one is going to add the rest of the information to pipe 2, and it's going to complete the task. So I'm going to run this thing, and I'm going to show you what happens on the portal side. Okay, so what we're going to want to do now is just compile this, which it's going to compile very quick. You see the number of lines is very small, and if you take out the white space, it may be only 100 lines or so. So it's very quick and easy, but it's a very powerful 100 lines of code. So if we just compile it and run it, we get this. So the reason why the browser opened this up right away is because at the end of the program, it closes the various pipes, and it shells using Windows commands again. It shells directly to the HTML that was created in pipe 2. So pipe 2 is what you're looking at now. And what you have here, and you can change this logo to anything really. I just put that up because it was the thumbnail for the video. But it could be your company logo or anything you want to put in there. And what you have here is, this is now the table of the files. So this table basically represents these files. So rather than opening it up through here, which is lacks cybersecurity, you can open it up right here. So you could open up PDF files, you could open up books and documents, You can open up tutorials. You could even open up, say, blueprints or, troubleshooting guides, things like that. You can open up the logo if you want, or you don't have to. Again, it's up to the coder to do it. What I have here is basically showing the difference between, this is how your code would look like in HTML if you coded from scratch, and this is what you need to add in if you're going to code and have an automatic HTML code builder. You need to use this character string 34. What that does is that, because in HTML many things have the double quote, so what you have to do is sort of trick the compiler into using character string 34 whenever it sees a double quote, so that it'll treat the double quote as part of the string and not part of the built-in compiler commands. And that's why you see all this character string 34 throughout. It needs to be there so that when the code compiles into HTML from your native code, like C, C++, Java, Python, C#, when it compiles into the HTML code from your native source code, you're going to get this. So if we look at that from the point of view of Hack Like a Spy, and I open that with TextPad, you can see that here what has been built is exactly what we were coding to build previously. So say here's the CSS section here in the native code, and what you have here is the actual CSS code in HTML format, which you can see here in the file name. So that's what I'm showing you, that what you've written there in your native language, see all the builder stuff here, is been built into now this. So this here, see body, color, font size, all that. This is all the output from your stream number 2. So if you look at the stream number 2 file name, Hack Like a Spy HTML number 2, and we go into this, there it is right there opened up. So you're basically writing a code that's building another code that's the secure cybersecurity code, and that's what you have here. So this is Hack Like a Spy, and when you run this code in the browser, you get this. So you get this. So now this is completely secure. Of course, because this is a teaching example, I just have pretty much everything in here, like HTML, tag types. You could make more. You can, here's whole directory again in the browser. So the sky's the limit. I've done a font test to look at the font sizes. And then I've done a links color test. That doesn't seem to work anymore. But it's all there. There it is. So, if you have a table with different colors in the table, I was trying to look at that just as a test. So sometimes when you're coding, it's best to do some little programs on the side just to see if the code works. They call that like copy and paste or hacking. And so that's what you really want to do. And there's the file count. It does overrun the table with the file count. I did that intentionally because I just wanted to make sure I captured all the files. But if you only want to know the exact file count, there's ways of ending the counter loops so that you end exactly on the file number of your last file, and then your total files found will match. And then down here, the very last piece of the string is just the directory, showing that it's coming out of my C drive, my documents folder called Hacking Like a Spy. And that's here, Hacking Like a Spy in C drive. So there's nothing special about my computer. There's nothing secret on there. But that's the lesson that I wanted to go over with you guys today. I hope it was beneficial. You learned something. And I'm going to end the video right there. This is Iron Designer saying I am out, and I will see you in the next video.